As we're recording this, it's we're in early October, and a few weeks ago, I spent some time aerating, seeding, and fertilizing my yard.
Mm.
And so I had to take the time to go and buy some seed. I've got a seed spreader and went around and get my steps in around my property. It's not a huge property, but it's something I want to take care of. And as I was doing that, I was thinking about this principle, this step of giving, and how my steps of preparing the soil and planting seeds is really a step of hope, a step of faith that I'm
Mm.
believing that what I'm doing now is going to have benefits in the future. It's not going to be an immediate benefit, but it's something that will show up later. As I sow, something is going to grow.
Welcome to the Faithful and True podcast. I'm Randy Everett, your co-host, and I'm here today with our usual host, Dr. Greg Miller. Greg, great to see you.
It's good to be here.
And back with us again today, we've got Gonzalez. Anthony Gonzalez, direct from Troutman, North Carolina, is back with us today, and this time without his lovely his lovely mate Brittany. But we're happy to have you, Ant, because you're you're a winner all by yourself. What else can I say?
Thanks, Randy. So glad
Yeah.
to see you.
Well, Ant's here today because he and Brittany are heading up a big initiative for us here at Faithful and True as they are leading the way with our Laaser Legacy Foundation. And Ant is here to tell you all about it today.
Well, and part of what we want to talk about is in the 12-step tradition, the 12th step is the importance of giving back. That even in the early days of my recovery, going to a 12-step meeting, we would talk about the 12th step and giving back. And it was a very simple act, but when you went, you had a dollar, you gave the dollar, and the dollar went towards providing support for the SA meeting, whether it was buying resources or if there was a small rent that went along with where you were meeting. And so that demonstrated early on that wherever you are in your recovery, first day, fifth year, there's still this idea that we are able to give back in the recovery process. And so I want us to spend some time talking about what are some of the ways that we can give back. What does it look like for us, even in the very beginning, to give back to the community in the process of recovering? So, Anthony, do you have any thoughts about that 12th step?
Yeah, I'd love to maybe even read it. So the 12th step says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So that idea of carrying this message to others is that idea of I'm moving towards doing things that will help contribute to the benefit of other people. That my recovery is not just about me, albeit that's an important piece, especially in the early stages, but it's bigger than me.
Hmm.
There's more than just me. And so the 12th step really becomes that opportunity to go from just looking inward to now looking outward and around and carrying all that I've learned into these other relationships and all my affairs. And so, you know, um, as we're recording this, it's we're in early October, and a few weeks ago, I spent some time aerating, seeding, and fertilizing my yard.
Mm.
And so I had to take the time to go and buy some seed. I've got a seed spreader and went around and get my steps in around my property. It's not a huge property, but it's something I want to take care of. And as I was doing that, I was thinking about this principle, this step of giving, and how my steps of preparing the soil and planting seeds is really a step of hope, a step of faith that I'm
Mm.
believing that what I'm doing now is going to have benefits in the future. It's not going to be an immediate benefit, but it's something that will show up later. As I sow, something is going to grow. And I'm going to use those two words a few times during our episode here, but the same is true in recovery, that as I make decisions to sow, plant helpful, healthy seeds, whether in my words, in my finances, in my time, it's a hope-filled, expectant action that it will grow benefits around me in the future.
And one of the beginning places is when you're experiencing something that is positive and helpful in your own recovery, that you tell other people about it. One of the images that I use is if you're starving and you find the buffet and you come across other people who are starving, it doesn't take any energy or effort to let them know where the buffet is. You don't have to be cooking the buffet, you don't have to be preparing the buffet, you just know where it is and you can direct other people to that. And so, for the men and women that are early in their journeys and they're thinking, I don't have much to give, I'm just learning. But if you have found resources, whether it's a community, whether it's our workshop, whether it's a book that you've read, and you can encourage other people, that's part of this 12th step, I believe. And one of the early gifts, one of the best gifts you can give other people is your own story. When you feel like you're in a place where you can begin to tell other people about the journey that you are on and it feels safe to begin sharing that, then what happens is when people know your story and their story is similar to your story, many times they seek you out. I was just talking to one of the guys in one of my groups, and he talked about the fact that he went to his pastor and let his pastor know that he's on a journey of recovery. And he basically said, if you come across anybody who talks to you about struggling with sex addiction, pornography addiction, infidelity, know that I'm a resource. And it wasn't long after that that two guys were sent his way because he was willing to just be open and tell his story. So I think even in the beginning, we can give back. And I love what you said, Anthony, because it reminds us that recovery is more than just me and focusing on myself. It's how can my transformation impact others, especially those that may be struggling.
That's right. And that transparency, that vulnerability you just described in that recent example has a twofold benefit. For the guy who's in recovery, volunteering himself to be a resource for others, it deepens his ability to be known, right? Whereas in addiction, we tend to hide,
Hmm.
we build on secrecy, and we it's all around shame. And so when we can move into recovery by stepping into transparency, vulnerability, building trust, creating intimacy by being fully known and fully loved, he gets that benefit. He gets to grow in his capacity to be known. But the second fold is other guys get to experience that from him
Hmm.
and therefore kind of have that invitation for them too to be known, right? So it's that vulnerability begets vulnerability,
Hmm.
transparency begets transparency, and therefore it's a win-win for the people who are involved.
Absolutely. One of the things that I see down the road, and I've heard a lot of men talk about this, is so I've been in my recovery for a while. Maybe I'm a part of a group at my church, and they need small group leaders. And so they start asking the men to be small group leaders. And what's true is it takes additional time, it takes additional energy. But again, as someone gets more solid in their recovery, not perfect in their recovery, but solid in their recovery, then they can begin to be that small group leader that is needed in the organization. One of the cautions I always give is if you're going to be a small group leader in some organization doing recovery, it is so important that you are getting supported outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
That if you're leading a group, it's important that you have a group that you're not leading. That you have people speaking into your life, because what's so easy to do is if you start leading in recovery, that becomes the focus, and leading in recovery is different than being in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And I often say we cannot lead men to a place we've not been. And so we constantly have to remind ourselves that we have to be on the journey also. But I know for a lot of men, that invitation of being a small group leader, that can feel overwhelming. They can have those questions. Am I the right guy? Is my recovery good enough? Am I willing to give this much time to it? But that can be another way that we give back if we get that invitation to support others in an organized way in their recovery.
I love that caution you gave, and I about becoming a leader, but not relying on leading in recovery to replace your personal recovery. And just as a step of vulnerability for myself, like even I today am still a part of a recovery group for me. That I'm not just leading and letting
Mhm.
everyone else check in and I'm withholding. Like that's a space that I need for myself because I still want to have these same principles in place in my own life. So, and even though I'm 10 years in, like this is something that I see as a kind of a lifelong part of my work of recovery. So, I don't know, I feel like that might be something someone needed to hear and
Hmm.
say. And
Well,
Mhm.
and what's true is 20 years in, I still regularly meet with my therapist. Continue to get support. I have community because I know that those are the things that keep me grounded. And one of the things I said early on when I started working with Faithful and True is there are going to be people in my life that know what's going on, and I'm never going to pretend I'm doing better than I am.
mm,
We have to have that place of authenticity if we are going to step in those places of leadership.
mhm,
I think another way to give back is if you're a part of a church that has a men's ministry that focuses on sexual integrity and recovery, that you find ways to support that. You know, if it's go early and make the coffee, if it's they're planning a retreat, that you get involved in that leadership team. But again, those are ways that as we continue the journey of recovery, we're able to give back.
mhm,
If you found if you found a resource that was helpful for you, if you bought a book and you liked the book, then you buy an additional book to give to somebody else.
mhm,
If you know you are going on a retreat and you have additional resources to pay for somebody else to go on the retreat. But I can't emphasize enough, it's not an accident that the 12th step is about giving back because that is foundational to our recovery to keep the bigger view of what it means to be on this journey together with other men.
I have the phrase imperfect action coming to mind,
Hmm.
which is even though I may not know how to do this perfectly yet, that it's okay for me to fumble forward into it. And I will become more proficient in helping others along the journey. And I thought about even as a father, um, the 12th step can also be fulfilled in part of my parenting role, that I can invest in my kids, particularly my sons, and at age appropriate levels, invest in their lives to help them understand the same principles I've learned in recovery, and therefore have kind of a generational multiplication where I'm guiding them, I'm offering them leadership into the steps I've taken and helping them in that same direction. And in many ways, writing a new narrative, writing a new script of what may have happened generationally before me. So this 12th step also becomes a really powerful opportunity to sow into the lives of those who come after you, and that way you can see them grow.
Right. And another structure that a lot of organizations have, whether you're in one of the A groups or you're in Celebrate Recovery, they talk about being a sponsor. And I think that that can be, you know, mentioned being a mentor. That can be an important role for people to step into. I think the key with the sponsor is know what you know what you don't know, and know when to refer.
Mm-hmm.
That was introduced to me early on, and that's one of the principles that I seek to live by even in the role at Faithful and True, a lot of things come across Faithful and True, and we have a team of people who have a variety of different expertise, and we can rely on that team to ask for help, ask questions, get support. And then there are times at Faithful and True, we refer to others outside of our organization because we live by the same principle. And anyone who really takes to heart that idea of know what you don't know when to refer, can step into this mentoring, encouraging, sponsoring role when they again feel a level of confidence and stability in their recovery.
So a good practical next step for our listeners would be create a simple document of a referral list for yourself
Mm.
that you can make available for other people so that when you feel like you're being faced with an issue, a struggle someone's facing that's beyond your training, beyond your experience, beyond your capability, you don't have to feel overwhelmed by it to try to figure it out. You can simply offer them a next step to someone who can help them. And so there's a lot of great online places to find these individuals, whether it's through CareNet, it's through the AACC, the American Association of Christian Counselors. They have Christian counselors available for you to research and find. CSAT and PSAP therapists can be found on the ITAP website, IITAP.com. But also, obviously, just browsing the Faithful and True website. faithfulandtrue.com, and looking at the members of our team and who are they, and they could be a great referral resource for you to use when you feel like you're being faced by something that's outside of your lane.
Yeah. And one of the things that is just true is probably the number one place that people hear about our workshops is through referrals. Whether it is a friend that refers another friend, a small group member that refers another small group member, a therapist or pastor that refers someone. And so that referral piece is a significant part where someone that we trust recommends something to us, then we're much more likely to engage it. And many of the resources that I have used in my own recovery have come from someone referring me to them or educating me about them or just introducing me to them. So again, early in recovery, we can still be that voice of encouragement, challenging, inviting people to consider the various resources they might need in order to engage their recovery. Now,
Well, sorry, Greg, I just thought of another way to give back.
okay.
A little bit different, but sometimes giving a physical gift to someone can be a way to give back. And what I mean by that is something that could be meaningful for that person's recovery. In some cases, I've been gifted a journal, or I've been gifted an item that has symbolism to it. It could be a stone, it could be a piece of art. And so, in many ways, I have found great joy in as I meet with someone and I hear their story and I think of something that would be helpful for them in their recovery. It may not be a book. It could be a book like we've talked about already, but it could be a tangible item that they could then use or find inspiration from. And I want to share that because there may be those who have a little more of an artistic bent and who might be
Hmm.
like, hey, there's a poem that I have or a song or piece of art. And that's also a way to give back to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. As you were talking, I was reminded that when Beth and I were separated in the early days of our recovery, there was a woman in her community that made the commitment that she would bring Beth and the boys dinner. I think it was every Tuesday night or Thursday night, and she did it for months.
Wow.
And so, she understood the chaos that Beth was going through. She understood just the physical limitations of Beth being the primary parent during this season, the demands of her role professionally. And this was a way that she stepped in to provide care. And to me, what was powerful about it is that even though I was out of the home, the fact that this woman was willing to do this provided care for me as she cared for my family. And so, if you're aware of others who are in the early days of recovery and they are in so much chaos, um, providing a meal, providing gift cards, there were a lot of ways that people showed up for us early in our recovery that really sustained us to remind us that people are with us. And in my particular case, because I was on staff at a church, the consequence of being fired were fairly common. So it wasn't like a secret of what we were going through. And so for those of you that may be doing stealth recovery, maybe there aren't a lot of people that know what you're going through, but that not knowing has resulted in some isolation. And so maybe part of your journey is being a little bit more open about what your family is experiencing so that there can be people who can show up with support. Another way was a commitment that my in-laws made that they would come from Nashville to Chicago once a month to be with Beth and support her and the boys, and they were faithful to that. And so when we think about this giving back piece, there's a variety of different ways that we're able to do that.
Yeah.
And one of those is to provide financially. And to me, that is a significant way. It's not the only way, but it is important that we acknowledge that there are ways that we can support others through financial contribution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Ant, early in the podcast, you mentioned the term sow and grow, and you said that you'll come back to that. And before we would run out of time, tell people about the Sow and Go campaign that is affiliated with the Laaser Legacy Foundation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Randy. So, Sow and Grow is a virtual event that I want to invite every listener to. This is your opportunity to become a partner with the Laaser Legacy Foundation. Now, if you've never heard of the foundation before, this entity was formed soon after the passing of Dr. Mark Laaser as a way to support, celebrate, and commemorate the work that both he and Debbie Laaser have been doing. And it's a way to also create an opportunity for those who have the affluence and the desire to make an investment that could then be used to help others who would otherwise not be able to afford the private therapeutic services made available through Faithful and True, as well as other similar organizations. So you may not know this, but every year, dozens of people, maybe even more, I don't have the hard numbers yet. I'll provide those when I get them. But there are many people who unfortunately don't receive the therapeutic services that they desperately need to find help and healing from their addiction. And so this is where you partnering with the Laaser Legacy Foundation comes in. You get a chance to hear from meaningful stories of those who have benefited from the partial scholarships through this foundation, which, side note, Brittany and I, we had a hard time affording some things, and therefore we were able to receive some assistance. Some of it, this was before the foundation was formed, so some of it was just from people who believed in us and loved on us. So similar to what Greg talked about, financial giving back can be directly towards those who have a need, buying them a meal, giving them a gift card. But for those who maybe have a higher capacity and maybe would benefit from a tax deduction, the foundation becomes a place where you can do that. So on December 4th, this is a Thursday, December 4th, 2025, at 7:30 p.m. Central, we want to create space for you to join us and listen to inspiring stories and have an opportunity to make a contribution. You can simply visit us at laaserlegacy.com. That's LAASERLEGACY.com to find out more. You can register for the event. We'll send you a Zoom link. If you can't attend for any reason but desire to give, you can also do that through the same website. Just hit the give link. And this is an opportunity for you to also live into that 12th step. I'll conclude with a quote from Henry Nouwen. He once wrote, "Generosity is the willingness to give freely of what we have, to allow our lives to be used in the service of others. It is a sign of our faith and our trust in God's abundance." And that's the idea, where we get a chance to move from a scarcity mentality to an abundance mentality, because recovery blooms in the soil of abundance. So that's why I want to invite you to sow and grow on December 4th.
One
Perfect.
one note that I would give is there is a podcast that Deb Laaser and I did soon after the foundation was created. And so for those of you that are wanting more information about the origin and where the thought of it came from, I would encourage you to find that podcast. We can make that available. And what it also is important is the funds that are given go directly to providing care for others. The administrative aspect of the foundation, those costs are covered in other ways. And so we want you to know that any money that you give will go directly to supporting other people in their recovery journey.
That just about wraps it up, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Anthony, thanks again for being with us today. It's always a joy to have you on the podcast. Greg, as always, thank you for your leadership on the Faithful and True podcast. We'd like to thank our listeners and our viewers for joining us today. We'd like to invite you to visit our website if you haven't already. It's faithfulandtrue.com, where you'll find many resources. You'll find over 550 podcasts just like this one, similar to this one, but there's a lot of content, and they go back in time, back to the early ones that featured Dr. Mark Laaser, and Mark sharing his experience and his knowledge and just his warmth and everything that was so wonderful about Mark is evident in those early podcasts. So we invite you to check that out. We also have the online information and registration for the 3-day intensive workshops. Every month we host the Men's Journey Workshop. Every quarter we have the Women's Journey Workshop. And then every quarter we have 2 different variations of the Couples Journey Workshop. We invite you to check out the details about those events as well. In the meantime, thank you to Anthony. Thank you to Greg. Thank you to our viewers and our listeners. And we hope that this week will be a week for you that's filled with many blessings and with great vision.